Hello, friends. We are back here at Google I/O, live from Google I/O at the Shoreline. I'm your host, Arthur Soroken, co-founder of Google's AI Futures Fund, a place where we strategically invest in startups that are building the future of AI. Again, yesterday you saw a lot of great products that were announced at during the keynote and the developer keynote, but those are all 0 to 1 on the inside. Those are 0 to 1 products that Google's talking about. What I'm here to do is talk to some of my AI Future Fund portfolio companies and family members to talk about the 0 to 1 innovation that's happening on the outside. So I'm very, very excited to introduce my guest, Madhav, who is the co-founder of Emergent. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. For a quick question before we get started, I'm asking all the guests, is this your first Google I/O?
It is my first Google I/O in person. Yes.
In person. Okay. Favorite launch so far, announcement?
I would say it has to be Omni.
It's got to be Omni.
Yeah. It blew my mind.
Good. Mine too. You and I share that. Well, let's go ahead and start. There's a lot of people listening here. There's a lot of people who are just builders, tinkers, entrepreneurs, people who are starting companies. And, first part is ideation. How do you come up with the idea? So how about you talk about how you talk about, Emergent.
So I think I'm glad you started on that because I feel like, there used to be a term where like people used to say the idea guy used to be a bad term previously because, hey, you come up with a lot of these ideas, but you're never going to implement
Never execute it.
Yeah, but thanks to AI, now if you are an idea guy, you're actually much more powerful, right? And tools like anti-gravity and Emergent are helping people take their ideas to the next level. You don't have to just be in the ideation mode all the time. You come up with an idea, you just prompt it, and boom, it's ready. And the kind of like when we kind of like entered the scene of app building, we saw that even this promise is not completely fulfilled. Like people are saying that AI can take you through, but what ends up happening is that nobody's closing that last mile, where when you build an app, you also want to hand it over to your end users. So with Emergent, our idea was that, hey, can we build an AI app builder which helps small business owners, entrepreneurs, take their ideas all the way to their end users and ship it all the way through. And so we end up building Emergent, where our app builder, AI app builder, lets you build an app which is production ready, full stack app. It can be a mobile app, it can be a web app, and you can all ship it all the way to your end users.
Great. I'm obviously a big fan, end user, but there's a few players out there.
Yeah.
You made it sound really easy, but there's something clearly different about what you're doing. So, there's a few players out there. What are you guys doing differently?
No, I mean, it is a crowded space when we entered, and since then we have kind of broken through the noise. I would say it's only been like less than a year for us since our public launch, and we are already at 100 million in annualized revenue run rate. We have like around 10 million apps being shipped, 9 million users on the platform, so it has taken off. And to your point, there are other players in the space, but the main place where we focused our energy on was delivering on the very simple promise that if you want to ship production-ready app, are we able to ship the kind of production-ready apps that an engineering team would be proud to ship, right? And so what we did was we thought through hey, how does an engineer ships an app, right? They think through the design process, they think through end-to-end testing, they build the backend, they build the database, and so we baked all of that in during our process. And our coding agent is one of the world-class coding agent. It was ranked 1 on Sweetbench Verified benchmark a couple of times, and so we basically gave that developer-grade coding agent in the hands of developers and non-developers, and allowed people to build production-ready apps from the get-go.
It's incredible, and it's mobile, it's web, mobile. It's agents, it's all the things.
Yes. And so one of the other core insight for us was that, hey, if you want to build a world-class app building platform, you cannot just stop at coding agent. You also have to build the infra around it. So we heavily run on Google Kubernetes cluster. Our infra is built from ground up. We do not use some third-party sandbox. We build our own sandbox container technology from the ground up. And what that allows us to do is that whenever agent gets stuck, it gets real-time feedback as to what is going on. Is the database down? Is the backend server down? And all that feedback happens all locally on the machine on which the agent is running. And that allows us to basically rapidly iterate without necessarily involving human in the loop.
Totally. Yeah. And you're already starting to get into it. You're, where you're building it, et cetera, Kubernetes, et cetera. What about the AI aspect? I'd love to, let's jump into the product just a bit. Yeah, tell us a little bit about the models.
I think we are very of the opinion that we want to like give the best bang for buck to our users. Our users also sometimes price sensitive, so we want to make sure that they don't overspend. So what we do is behind the scenes, we run a lot of evals around which models are doing well. And then what we are able to do is we are able to segregate tasks. There are certain tasks where Gemini outshines, like for example, front-end UI development, right? And so there are other tasks for which some other model might be useful, right? So we basically are able to on the fly figure out what exactly his user wants, which tasks can we delegate to model A versus model B, and handle all that orchestration ourselves, so users don't have to think about it. We also allow users to build very AI-enabled apps. So if someone wants to build, hey, I want to build a photo booth app, and I want to power it with using Nano Flash or VO3 or something, users don't have to go and like get API key. We handle all of that behind the scenes.
Right.
So they just come and they prompt their way into building those AI-enabled apps, which I think is going to be the future. Most of the apps are going to be like AI-enabled going forward.
That makes total sense. And then so today in the product, some of the Google products that you're using Gemini,
Yes.
using Flash.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things we are doing is like Flash is really good at speed and is a surprisingly good like tool calling model as well. So what ends up happening is Flash can be your front, the person you interact with on the personal basis, on a daily basis, and then that can delegate further to other models like Gemini 3 Pro, other models for heavy duty tasks. And the Flash being fast means that you are very responsive.
That makes total sense.
And in fact, we launched a new product where now you can actually build the app on the go. The inside name is Wingman, but we'll probably launch with a new name. And the idea is that if you strike with an idea on the go, you can just text your Wingman and it'll build the app on the go. Yes.
I love that. Well, let me ask, I know a lot of builders out here too models are launching all the time. I mean, you're at I.O. We just launched announced a bunch of series of models. How do you keep up with like what's coming and how to balance? I mean, you must have a pretty sophisticated harness and eval system, but curious how you would give advice to folks that are also building in this space where
I think like a lot of the work happens behind the scenes, and a lot of you really need to invest a lot in the tooling, in the evals. And I would say like sometimes people kind of underestimate even doing manual evals. People think, hey, everything has to be automated from the day one.
Right.
I would highly encourage people to even just take the time to even build manual evals where like there's a human who's evaluating things as a very first sort of gatekeep to get a sort of like that vibe sense of like which model is doing what. And obviously you also want to quickly follow that up with automated evals. And so once you've done a lot of that work behind the scenes, then you're able to iterate rapidly, right? A new model comes up, you can like quickly run through those evals. But we also do like online live testing with users where we are able to like see how does this model perform live in a production setting.
Oh, interesting.
And
how does that look in product? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, like, both Mukund and I have worked at Google, and Mukund, my co-founder brother, was part of the Google search team in New York, and so he knows how like at Google like there is this whole concept of like experiment velocity. How can you experiment at scale? And like figure out from the signals that you're receiving which experiment is like pointing in the right direction and like is statistically significant. And so I think that's where like you are able to separate the models out. Like, hey, is this new model improving the business metric?
Right.
Is it improving the conversion? Is it improving the retention? And how is the usage tracking when we launch this model? Right.
I love that you guys spend so much time on that. It's important as.
And actually, one counterintuitive thing is that like sometimes when you see a model becoming smarter, it may on the surface seem that the price has increased, but because the model has become intelligent, it'll actually spend less time.
Efficiency.
Yes, efficiency. Yes. So it's not always, you shouldn't just always look at like what is the price per token. You should actually run through your tasks, because for your task it may be that it's not doing anything dumb anymore.
Right.
And it's just doing the job better.
More efficient and higher quality.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let me ask you this. I'm sure you have lots of hero use cases of real human stories. I mean, do you have a quick one that you might want to share?
Oh, no, I mean, like lots of stories, and those are the most heartwarming part of building this startup, right? And one of the things we are like focused on is small business owners and entrepreneurs. We feel that like developers nowadays like have access to a lot of these tools, but like for non-developers who are domain experts, they don't get access to these. So for example, like we have a person who is based out of Norway. He has a day job, but on the side he has a real estate license, so he does like moonlights as a real estate guy. So he built kind of an Airbnb clone, so to help his customers, find the rental properties, explore it on their own. So I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling to me that what would take like 100K budget to outsource to a dev shop, now you can sit and build over a weekend by yourself. And this particular entrepreneur, like, he likes to call himself like a business developer because he's not a developer, but he has the business knowledge, and now all he has to do is like just put it into practice.
I love that you guys spend so much time with your users too to pull stories like this.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's mind-blowing, and I think it's very empowering to hear these users. Some of these are pretty, like, some of them are retired folks who have like come out of retirement now. They're like, hey,
right,
now I can build it, like build the ideas that I have. You know, I'm probably like a world expert in some niche domain, and now I can use my niche domain knowledge.
Let me ask last question here. As far as, you know, AI has moved quite quickly, models ship quite fast, but it took some time. So from idea that you had to, you know, model was actually capable to support what you did, like how did you think about that? Like, was there a time where you said, like, it's that feature that allows me to build this app right now? Yeah,
it has been a journey. We have been riding the model sort of like growth ourselves, and like when we were part of Y Combinator Summit 24 startup, and our first original idea was to build end-to-end UI testing agent. And while we were building this, we realized, hey, we might as well be able to automate the entire software development lifecycle. And at that time, like, models were good, but like it could do like a few things, and so we had to do a lot of engineering around it. But as you progress further and further, you can delegate a lot of those things to model themselves. And so we kind of bet in the direction of model improving, right? So we are saying, hey, we are not going to over-engineer our system as well. We're going to assume that models are going to get better and better. And let's just give model more agency.
Smart bet?
Yes.
You took a smart bet.
It is going on.
Madhav, I can spend all day here chatting with you about all of this. I love the space you're in. I'm a big fan. I'm a big user. I just want to thank you for spending time with us today. And,
this has been
you know,
great.
The audience hopefully got a lot of good nuggets out of here, so thank you.
No, love the atmosphere.
Well, cool. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out other I.O. content on the channel. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Hello, friends. Welcome back. We are here live from Google I/O at Shoreline Amphitheater. I'm your host, Arthur Soroken, co-founder of the Google's AI Futures Fund, where we strategically invest in startups that are building the next innovation of AI. You heard, like I said earlier, you heard yesterday during the keynote, et cetera, a bunch of products that Google shipped, 0 to 1 products that Google was shipping. That was all fantastic, a lot of great launches, but I'm here actually to talk about all the 0 to 1 innovation that's happening on the outside. So I get the privilege of interviewing some of AI Future Fund portfolio companies, family, friends, etc. So I am very, very excited to introduce my next guest, Bianca. She is the CEO and founder of Wearing, and it is one of my favorite apps. And I have a secret before you say anything. I've done a podcast with you before. You've seen me at Cloud Next a few weeks ago, and you knew everything. You had all my looks. I had to use Wearing to pair something new today, and so the secret's out. So I had to do that. All right, good. Bianca, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, before we jump into all the things, a lot of builders out there and listeners, they're in this phase of like, well, how do you start with an idea? And so I'd love for you to talk about the Wearing origin story.
I love that, and it feels like such a throwback in the new age of AI. So we launched in 2022, and everything was driven by 2 worlds kind of colliding. One was my own kind of introspective journey where I wanted to make the most of the clothes that I already owned. I wanted to have a personal stylist in my pocket, which at the time felt like an insane concept. But I was also working in banking for some of the biggest family offices in the world, worked on a couple of fashion tech IPOs, and I was like, hang on. This data segment around wardrobes and what their content is, how they're used, is invaluable, and it's a black box, and I want to democratize it.
I love that. Wait, background is amazing. So your background is in finance. It's
Yes.
incredible mix. All right, I would love to jump into the product. How does the product work? I want the world to know about this. How does the product work?
So we are democratizing access to both styling, but also community-driven styling, which is so exciting, by digitizing the world's wardrobes. So we basically help people take pictures of all of the clothes that they already own in order to help put together looks based on their mood, the weather, or occasion. The product has come a long way from its initial kind of version, and now it's all about you styling your friends, adding things to your wish list, drawing on inspiration, and using AI to recreate these looks with the things you already have.
That is incredible.
So it's like Clueless in a bottle.
Hey, one of the
in an app.
Classic movie. I always thought like, oh, the Clueless movie, was it inspired? Was the app inspired by that?
100%.
Yes.
100%.
That's what I want to know.
I was like, what joins the boomers, the millennials, and the Gen Zs? And this is the pop cultural phenomenon that does it.
All right, so next thing I have to ask. So now, when I think about fashion apps and AI, I mean, talk to me. What is AI? How is AI helping? What are you doing with Google? I'd love to hear all the things.
I mean, first of all, we're so excited to be collaborating with you guys. Getting early access to some of your models, sharing feedback around these things has really shaped the way that we think about our product, but also our speed of iteration, and how quickly we can get to market, which is ultimately the goal of, I think, any founder, right? How can I ship better things quicker to the people that matter and that want to interact with it? So I think there are 3 focal areas for us in terms of our AI journey. The first is conversational chat that helps give you insight on how is your personal style evolving, what items you should resell and when for what price, how to elevate an outfit as you're stepping on to like a TV appearance or whatever your bag is. The second thing is thinking about how we digitize your wardrobes, how we take the work away from the user. So we've been working with you guys on features like gallery scanning that digitizes straight from your camera roll or your Instagram. Again, totally revolutionizing that barrier to entry. And then the third is really experiential stuff like bringing virtual try-on, color analysis, and really upping the game when it comes to our styling functionality based on, as I said, mood, weather, and destination ultimately.
That's incredible. And then what models are you using today in product? Yeah.
A bunch of them. I will divert to my CTO
Great.
on that. But I know like Nano Bananas,
Using
like
Nano Banana.
revolutionized.
You're using 2.5, I believe.
Definitely.
for like photo analysis.
Absolutely, and I think that's changed the name of the game for how quickly we can do that, and also how cost efficiently we can do it.
How much I was talking to a guest earlier, and I was thinking about this moment of, well, AI is moving so fast, and you know, from idea to there's a moment where you can build this idea. Do you have that moment in mind of like, oh, that was the feature where I said, oh, I can build this app now and today, and let's go?
Oh my God, yeah. I think the real aha moment for me was actually a couple of months ago. After chatting to one of your incredible PMs, shout out to Paige, if I'm allowed to do that,
yes.
Where we basically had this incredible realization that the business that we had built in today's world no longer needs to be exactly the same, and they're totally different routes to market, but also totally different feature sets that actually matter to today's customer. And so now it's less about digitizing your wardrobe, but more about how do we onboard and add value, whether it's styling, conversational stuff, without the digitization piece being done, and we do that over time. And that's just shifted the whole model on its head, right? Because we can today provide value in terms of styling input without having access to your whole wardrobe, and help you build that over time by you logging, you know, selfies of what you're wearing on the daily basis in your calendar, which just changes the whole model, and has allowed us to bring a lot of our social features to the fore.
Do you find that, I love that, do you find that your users are tech forward and centric, or the tech's behind the scene? How do you think about AI and tech being at the forefront versus behind the scene and actually providing that, you know, that wardrobe personalized stylist?
It's a great question. I think, you know, for our users, there's definitely a big split in the demographic. We're very kind of circular, fashion focused, and a lot of the kind of power user cohorts. But I think we have a growing, very tech savvy, young Gen Z, hungry, you know, user base that understands how AI can support in the way that, you know, they want the output to kind of be formed and kind of given to them in this new age. And so it's been really interesting to balance the two. And so I think we've kept parts of the app very kind of AI behind the scenes, right? We're doing computer vision to kind of, you know, automatically crop and kind of tag items as you upload them, or enhance them with really cool features like Enhance that are just about to launch. But also bringing some of the AI, you know, forward stuff right into the main user journey, with like our chat being at the forefront of like the nav bar, so that people who are interested in it know how to access it, while staying true to our brand mission to, you know, reduce environmental impact where we can.
That's right. And, you know, so many models out there, and everyone's shipping something new every week, and cost is a thing for, especially our Gen Media models. It's a big thing for all Gen Media models.
Yeah.
How do you think about what you test, what you launch? How do you think about those things from a user perspective? Yeah.
Incredible question. I think three key things for us. We've got an incredible, we've been doing this a while, launched in 2022.
Wow.
So we've got an incredible backlog of, you know, user research, hundreds of thousands of messages from, you know, 10 million users globally, read what they want to see up front. So we're doing a lot of like strategic prioritization of that backlog now that we can move so much faster. The second thing for us is really thinking about, you know, how can we beat the cultural zeitgeist? So how do we get tastemakers involved, and how do we prioritize getting their experience into what we prioritize and therefore ship, so that we have this really cool mix of like AI-enabled styling whilst relying on really cool, you know, democratized, you know, human-based input, which has been really interesting and a fun conversation to have.
Totally.
Yeah, and then lastly, I think, you know, we're also very forward in terms of, I think, where we want the product to be, and I think voice is going to be a big thing for us in the future. And I think we're, from a cost kind of output perspective, that's probably where we're going to head with some of our features, and then gate, you know, some of the most cog-heavy AI features behind paywalls.
I think that's very smart. If I also think about your product, I think about, I mean, it's for styling, so it has this, you know, a really clean UI, and I'm curious how intentional that is, of like, you're building a stylist for styling yourself, and you also have to build a product that also probably has to look like a fashion product as well. So how intentional is your product? Because it is beautiful, but how intentional is that?
Thank you. So I think it's been something that's been top of mind for a really long time. I think we view community building and brand building as, two competitive modes. And I think the intentionality behind the brand and how we want to show up and the experience we want to create, we call it wardrobe zen, and that's ultimately kind of our goal in terms of UX, UI. When you land on the app, we want it to feel like this safe space where, you can put together outfits, you can riff with our AI, you can, I guess, experiment in a really safe manner. And so I think it's been really interesting because it's something that we've prioritized from the very get-go, and I think it's stood us in really good stead. We also have a lot of very vocal users who are like, guys, this needs to look and feel great.
That's right.
So we've also been, very politely guided
I love that.
by our user base.
That's incredible. Maybe one last quick question for you. I'm sure you have many good stories. Do you have one quick story of a user that is using the app? And I would love to hear one of your user stories.
Oh my God, I have 1,000 different iterations of this because I spend every single waking moment. I literally talk to users on a weekly basis, probably daily basis. I think the coolest one was we were reaching out to a massive corporate. I don't want to name them right yet because we're not announcing it yet, but for a big partnership opportunity that was gonna, lead to incredible support on our go-to-market in different markets that are really important to us. Reached out to their head of marketing. She was like, I love what you do. I was one of your first users when you launched the beta program, and it was just the most incredible full circle moment. Pulled off the partnership. We went to have lunch. We hugged it out, and I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
I love it. Builders, stay close to your people, to your users.
100%. Come to Founders. Amazing things happen.
So good. Bianca, I could do this all day with you. You're one of my favorite humans. Your entire team is styled right. You are styled right. Thank you so much for doing this for me.
Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome.
This is awesome. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I am Greg Baugues, and welcome back to Google Cloud Live. We are filming live from Google I/O, and I am joined here by Dave Elliott. Dave, could you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Dave Elliott. I run developer relations for Cloud AI here at Google.
Amazing. And Addy Osmani.
Hey, I'm a director in Cloud AI. I try to improve developer experience and just make sure that people have a great time using our platform.
Amazing. Lots of talk about agents at I/O. I want to share a little bit of a personal story. I just joined Google in November, about 6 months in. I've done a lot of building with agents on my personal machine for my personal use. I think the thing that's amazing to me about working inside of Google is the scale at which everything operates at. And I wonder, Dave, maybe you could start us off talking about, I suspect we have a lot of folks watching this who have built their own agents.
Yeah.
And they probably have aspirations of one day deploying agents in the enterprise. Could you talk a little bit about what that journey looks like, both within Google and then for our customers, since Google Cloud is sort of the place where we take Google's expertise at deploying at scale and bringing it out to the world?
Yeah, we were just talking about this. Such an exciting time to be building stuff. I think Google Cloud, generally speaking, is a result of what you just described, which is we build at scale for ourselves. And as we've gotten better and better and better at doing that, we've been able to extend that out to other developers. So the same thing here. Like internally, we build agents, we build infrastructure. And I think what you see when you're building sort of planet scale agents are things that when you first build something on your laptop, you may not see later on. You might not see the consequences of not having the agents registered and communicating with each other, not having ability to do agent evaluation, not just on day one, but on day 6 and month 6. Really, the day 2 stuff is what I think most people don't think about as they're rushing to get their first experiment out.
And Addy, you had a post recently around Google Next, and you were talking about how all software has gone through a maturation process where it starts off exciting, and then it ends up getting kind of boring. Yeah. Could you talk about that a bit?
Absolutely. A quote that I like to use a lot is from Grady Booch, who's the creator of UML, and he says that the history of software is a history of like rising abstractions because we keep trying to make things easier for people. And as we go through the hype curve of like, hey, this is a cool new thing, it's exciting, but oh wait, it now has to grow up. And growing up means that we're able to do things like pay attention to, how are we tracing it? How are we offering guarantees around, the work that it's going to be doing? How are we governing it? How are we making sure that if it's going off and doing something, we actually know exactly what that is? That's kind of what's happening for agents right now. So agents are going through their grow up moment. And that's exactly what the agent platform is there to help you with.
That's a good segue, actually, into talking about the agent platform. So we launched back at Next about a month ago, the Google Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform, what we call the Agent Platform. This is actually a good time to bring up that slide. This is a good sort of summary of all the things that are in Agent Platform, but not just from a product perspective. This is what I think all developers need to think about on that day, on day 1 for day 2. Day 0, day 1, day 2. Build, scale, govern, and optimize. I think that's the sort of the beginning to end process.
Maybe we can you were talking about personal agents, right? A lot of people watching this have probably played around with, whether it's OpenClaw or Hermes or some other, setup for building your own agents. And when you're doing that, right, you've probably also ran into the situation where you want to connect up to your data, you want to connect to lots of different kinds of third-party services, and you want to enable your agent to have as much power as possible while also kind of mitigating the blast radius of what it can do. And when it comes to, being able to run agents at scale for a business, all of those concerns become very, very real very fast. And that's really where Agent Platform tries to help you with primitives along the way. And so we've got agent identities so that, if you've got hundreds or thousands of agents that are, performing tasks, you can actually tell which agents did what. So if anything went wrong, you're able to go and debug that a little bit more clearly. If, you're wondering about making sure that individual agents have got credentials, we've got solutions to help you through that, so you don't have to like set up some insecure way to connect up to those third parties instead. Yeah. It's all very, very managed. And I feel like that can give businesses a level of confidence when they're trying to go from, hey, here's a personal agent able to do a few cool things, to we're actually running a business with lots of agents to scale.
And you said, when we were talking before, Greg, you said that. It's sort of like, I may not need this now, but by working in agent platform, even just looking at this slide, which I love, even this chocolate bar diagram, I love because it makes you sort of think about things that maybe you wouldn't have thought about in the past. Maybe it's not relevant for you. Maybe you're really just building that one agent you're going to run on your home computer, and it'll check the score of the baseball game. Yeah. But it might not be. And down the road, you should at least know what these things are that will worry you.
One thing I love so much about being here is been able to meet so many customers. And I met a woman last night at dinner. The picnic table's over here, and she said that she works on multi-agent orchestration at her company. And I was like, well, what company is that? And it was a large health insurance company. And she's talking about, like, yeah, we can't just run YOLO mode on health records, right? Like, there's HIPAA. And so I suspect for most folks here, there's a continuum from building agents for personal use on a local machine to, that degree of regulation and privacy concerns.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's amazing that so many people are playing around with their own custom personal agents right now. It will give you a better sense of capabilities, right? And then you can take that to work and actually work with agent platform.
Filming live.
Filming live. Yeah. Wonders of liveness. But they can then take that to work and understand, okay, well, here are the places where I wasn't quite sure, or I'm a little worried that my agent may have access to like information it shouldn't, yeah, or credentials it shouldn't, or those types of things. Yeah. And again, this platform allows you to control that blast radius in a way where you've got more guarantees than you otherwise would.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think we still are in the era of exploration and experimentation. Just do it with your eyes open.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's nice to be building on a platform where there are guardrails, because when you know you have guardrails, you can build more confidently, and you can experiment more when you know you've kind of cut the downside risk. I think you had another slide that
yes, a choice for agent development. This is something that we put together for this event, since we launched several things. Do you want to talk? Through the anti-gravity?
Sure. We can talk through a few of these. So, just at a high level, we're trying to give people a number of entry points for being successful building agents. Maybe you don't have a lot of strong technical background, right? Or you're more of a visual person. That's why we give you, Agent Studio. It's great for being able to visually construct what your agent setup, your sub-agents, what all that's going to look like. You can go and experiment with different models that you want for each of those pieces. You can generate ADK code using it as well. It's very powerful. We also recently announced Managed Agents API. Now, the way that I would think about Managed Agents API is you now have the option of either going very configuration first, or going very engineering first if you want to go and use ADK.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
I think that's exactly right. I think ADK, I always start, because I'm a developer, as, we start to build with ADK. But that's because I'm a developer and I'm code first. But you're exactly right. We now have these other entry points for people to get quickly to value and to be able to experiment, and actually to really get down the path where eventually maybe they'll move into a more flexible framework like ADK.
Yeah. So at Next, we announced the Agent CLI. The ADK team has done a great job over the last couple of months, sharing skills, best practices, workflows, everything that you need to do to be successful. But we also heard from folks was like keeping track of all of those pieces was getting a little bit hard. That's really what Agent CLI was trying to help with, just bringing together all of those into a package so you don't have to worry about duct taping them together yourself.
Yeah, and it's been pretty popular, right? It's got, I don't even know how many thousands of stars now. Yeah. It's been great.
It's been great. Anti-gravity was a very big part of I/O yesterday. Quite a lot of content, demos, announcements around it. And anti-gravity, if you haven't seen it or played around with it just yet, it's our primary solution these days for people who are, using AI for agentic coding and agent orchestration. I would say that very similar to other solutions for agentic coding, we've been increasingly shifting towards, workflows where people are working with multiple agents at one time. And so it makes a lot of sense that your primary UI is also going to evolve in that direction, a little bit away from an IDE and more towards how do I manage all of these agents and the work that they're generating. And so that's very powerful. You can also use anti-gravity with all these other pieces if you want. So if you were trying to build out your business using agents, you can use the agent CLI with anti-gravity, give it to your agent. It will be able to do everything that it needs to do to help you automate those different steps of your workflow. But you can also use it with Managed Agents API. You can use it with many of these other pieces, which means that you've got a lot of flexibility towards
Agent
success.
platform, ADK, right? Yeah.
What does it look like for a developer to get started with ADK and with the agent platform?
You see, they got it right here. ADK.dev, right there. ADK.dev. In all seriousness, it's all sitting out open for anybody to go use and try. We say 10 lines of code, you can be up and running with an agent. As Nike said, just do it. Just go give it a try. If you're a software developer, if you're a code first person, really it's a framework that is going to get you to where you need to be more quickly, but also provide a framework for you to do it in a safe and consistent way.
Yeah, and to what we were saying earlier, there are a lot of lower friction paths to being able to use ADK for building agents now. Again, Agent Studio, Agent CLI, and whether you're using anti-gravity or Claude Code or other solutions, you can use these with Agent CLI to get effective with ADK.
And then at some point, if you're building an agent, you want other folks to use it, you're going to need to deploy this, right? Why is Google Cloud, why is the agent platform make such a good place to deploy your agents?
Gosh, so many reasons. I would start with, let's start with the infrastructure, right? Yeah. So I mentioned planet scale before, and I saw some great stats on the amount of compute and the infrastructure that we deliver, the infrastructure we deliver from a networking perspective, so storage, networking, compute, and really the AI infrastructure. That's sort of the best you're probably going to find on the planet, and that's because we have the fortunate luck of being a part of Google, right? And we've built that for ourselves. I would say that's the first thing. It's the infrastructure. Yeah. And then the second one really is agent platform. Agent platform we talked about has all of the components that you should think about as you move not just from deployment, but actually into scaled production. Yeah. You agree with that?
I would agree with that. I completely agree with that.
Could you all talk a little bit about observability? I feel like, especially with agents being non-deterministic, right? What have you found as to be some best practices for observability, for debugging agents as you're building with ADK?
Yeah, we talked about this at Next. Obviously, agents are non-deterministic by default, which is not a big surprise. And so what you want, ideally, is to be able to have a clear idea of what are the behaviors that you ideally want them to exhibit, like how are they accomplishing tasks. How are you then, you mentioned observability, how are we measuring their success on those tasks? What points do they start to go off the rails? How are you able to see that in a dashboard in a way that anybody on your team can then go debug and actually take action on, whether that's improving system instructions or something else? And so I would say that there is a lot in our platform that helps you there, including in the optimize bucket.
Yeah, I was, it's funny, when I always try to call out anomaly detection, because I think that's one of the really interesting things. Like when you run through Agent Gateway and you have model armor running, which can identify things like prompt injections, that's great. But then if something happens, to be able to identify that it's happened, you have anomaly detection. So you can identify when the logic suddenly takes a leap in one direction or the other. So observability has a lot of different connotations. That to me is a really important one that people overlook.
You said something there, model armor. Talk about model armor.
Model armor is what I just said. It's a way to create a protection from things like injections that in an unprotected environment could cause catastrophic changes. That and again, without something like anomaly detection, you'll never know.
Amazing. So for folks who want to get started, adk.dev, best
adk.dev,
adk.dev. Check out Agent Garden. We've got a lot of pre-baked templates that you can use for getting started with your agents. Agent CLI.
Agent CLI is a great way to get started. Yep.
Amazing. And where can folks find you two online?
We're all over the place.
All over the place. Now,
All over the
LinkedIn.
place. LinkedIn.
David L. Elliott, 2 L's and 2 T's. Come connect.
Amazing. And Addy, I've been very much enjoying your regular posting on LinkedIn.
Oh, you're very kind.
Commenting on everything. So thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
Well, I hope folks enjoy the rest of our I/O content.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the next live stream.
And thank you all for watching. We'll be back live in 5 minutes.
right, hey everybody, welcome to Google I.O. and this chance to spend some time with Christina and Denise. We got to have some fun this week as we were kind of playing through these scenarios of how do we do more advanced things using agents to get software to production. I know a lot of this conference has been about how do you build.
Right.
And that gets all the glory. But how do you think about, I mean, obviously most of software's life is typically in production, not in the build phase. So as you were really even planning this session and thinking about it so much, what do you think was the unappreciated part of working with agents and dealing with the production side?
Well, the thing is, I feel like we talk too much about vibe coding these days, and right now it's really easy to get an application out. The problem is always after what you put it in on production, right? And that's when things goes wrong. And this is kind of why we really want to talk about day two. What happens if things starting to break? Right, Denise?
Yeah, and also that's always the harder part, right? It's easy to go and deploy something over to a cloud or wherever you want to deploy it, but just looking through logs, looking through performance stuff, that's all the stuff nobody actually wants to do.
Right, that's tedious.
I mean, even building a single app, you can do that pretty straightforward now with most of the tools we saw today. But as you've showed off even in the session, having to troubleshoot that, there's scale issues, there's security issues, reliability issues. Like the dimensions are actually much more, frankly, interesting on the day two side because there's so many things, even for a simple app, that can go sideways. What do you think on an agent app? What is that production grade dimension that maybe we sell short? Not we, Google, but we as an industry can look at and we don't appreciate the sort of complexity of that. Is there one that stands out to you, Christina?
Specifically tracking. So when things go wrong, right? This could be multiple symptoms, and then you get to the root cause.
Right.
And getting all the right symptoms in, and then do analysis, and then going back to figure out the root cause. And I don't think we're telling enough, like, how do we get all the symptoms, and how do we consolidate it, and how do we kind of analyze it together?
Versus jumping on the first symptom and not realizing you're not diagnosing the actual problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the things that we are always missing is just the fact that you can get all the data to you easily just by using one tool. And, one of the things that we all hate is, all right, I got to go grab my logs. I got to go download the logs. And then I have to go and open these logs that I really, really don't want to look at. And just being able to get everything. And by doing that, these agents can actually get the better root causes. And sometimes it's not just one root cause. Yeah. It's multiple root causes. And by having all the data all together, that's going to allow us to do a better job. And I think we always forget that it's not just only for vibe coding. It could be for debugging.
Right. I mean, and on that debugging point, one of the first things you showed off when we had our session yesterday was, taking a local environment. I don't think you jumped really very much to the actual cloud interfaces or things like that. Instead, you kind of took a loaded environment of your local environment and you pulled all that to you. How were you pulling production information, logs, information, metrics? How are you pulling that into your local environment? Is that easy? Is that hard?
I mean, we have all those MCPs available for us, and that allows us to securely go and connect our agent with our cloud and all the data and services that we have. And I think a lot of people are worried about, from a security perspective, is this stuff going to be some random place or what's going to happen to it? And just the ability to go and configure a couple MCPs. And now with Google's managed MCPs, we don't have to really worry about it because we could just go and configure a whole bunch of it and just be able to get everything that we need.
And what I like about Google's MCP server is how comprehensive they are. Because if you think about all the systems you're trying to get from the cloud, you want to see the whole picture, right? So not having maybe a single access to a single component is not enough, right? So you want to get able to access everything and getting all this in. That's why you need all that. And I think Google Cloud MCP Server makes it easy for your local agents to analyze it.
You were plugging it into anti-gravity, and now for the people watching, were you just doing some wizard-like prompts to make sure it used the MCP correctly to pull all the right logs? What's a prompt that you were sending in that was taking, a running system and pulling all the right information? Was it magic?
Not magic at all, and as you saw, it was actually very, very basic. But the fact that we have it configured, and it's not like it was even that hard to configure it, especially with anti-gravity and for anti-gravity and Google MCPs, it's literally a click of a couple buttons and then you're good to go. And so it just knows, because
You spoke your prompt, right? Remind
Yeah.
me, what was your prompt? Do you remember? Right
Yeah,
now?
it was like, find out what's wrong with my DynaQuest app. Like,
So
and that's it.
That was it.
That was
just
it.
told it to look out what's wrong with my Cloud Run services, and it will just go look for the DynaQuest service.
Yeah, because it probably just kind of like, okay, if you're asking me about a service, it's probably going to be in a Cloud Run. It probably used a Cloud Run MCP and looked through the services, and we called it DynaQuest. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're going to have to name it roughly the same. You can't be like DynaQuest and your service is named like, I don't know, a dog or a cat or something like that, but...
Do you feel like, some of this, what would you have done before? Would you have to do some complex, even log analytics SQL query? Like, we're just using natural language. You were literally hitting the microphone and talking into it.
Yeah.
What were you going to do before? You were going to do just complex SQL queries or just scrolling through data? Like, what's a year ago?
First of all, we need to navigate the console first, right?
True.
Figuring out where they are, because console gets a little complex especially for the new users. If you're not used to
familiar,
like a cloud environment, it could be very intimidating sometimes for me. And being able to find out where the service is hiding, and then finding out where they are, going to the logs, looking at the metrics, and looking into the error logs, trying to map all the pieces together. That's what we have to do before.
And what you were showing, of course, is that usually if this happens in real life, not just on stage in front of hundreds of people or thousands online, is there's an urgency to this. And if you're stressed out and trying to figure out, is this even the right service and this and that? But you were all doing this on stage live.
Yep.
I don't know, I think we can miss when you need to find a root cause and fix a problem. We don't have time to just go down a bunch of false trails.
Exactly. I think one of the things that's really, really cool about this is being able to attach your code to your symptoms. Right. So to be able to find the root cause. So now the agent has ability to access your code and then look at the problem, go find the problem, figure out what's wrong. Right. So that's something that was not able to do before, because you have two groups of people: the SREs who has no idea what the code writes, and the people that writes the code and has no idea like how things are running in the production. So bringing the two worlds together is awesome.
And I mean, plus usually when you have to debug, everything has to be in serial, because like you're gonna go, all right, let me go look at this first. All right, it's not that. Let me go look at the next thing. And it's gonna take a while to get through. And what if it's the last thing that you thought of?
As it usually is. So you built on that and then said, like, look, many times the first thing we build is not always the right thing or even the optimized thing. So you really jumped into an optimization phase here, going, like, all right, the app crashes, or even if it just doesn't scale the way we want, how do you think about agentic ways to, first off, even figure out what I should be looking at? Because sometimes the app isn't even broken. You're just like, maybe there is a security assessment I should do or others. So how do you think about optimization with agents, both proactively, like nothing's even absolutely wrong right now, or then reactively, like something broke? How do you approach the optimization consideration?
I mean, we really have to think about a lot of things that you always want to, we use data for everything, but before we didn't want to use data because it's such a pain to go and get all of that.
Right.
And so now that we can easily get the data, we can go and create agents that will just run in the background to be able to go and feed you information of things that can be possible to optimize it. If you're running things and then it's like, oh, all of a sudden your CPU looks like it's shooting up, we can have a Slack notification that lets you know. And something that you wouldn't even normally be monitoring because you don't really have time for that.
Another type of optimization is your app itself. So how do I learn the user behavior, right? Before, a lot of the times what we did is I would plan a bunch of logs in my application, and then what I would have to do is download the entire log, write a bunch of ETL pipelines, extract them, put them into BigQuery data warehouse, and do another analysis on top of that. So,
that's a lot that's intimidating. I mean, you were showing off the data toolkit, the agent toolkit for, I don't know, I was seeing things in there. I know when you were using it, you realized, like, this is really up-leveling. Like, this is doing some stuff that would be intimidating, frankly, even just really hard to do with certain skill sets, and we're just doing it.
Yeah. Nobody, like I said yesterday, nobody remembers all their SQL queries.
I
mean,
it's
too
much.
And just looking at the amount of queries that it did.
And not just SQL, and also BigQuery SQL as well, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of SQL.
It's just so many, and if you really went down to the details of what the agent did, I think there was at least like 7 or 8 queries that it ran, maybe even more than that.
And not only that, we also set up the infrastructure to get it done, right? Before we had to actually download the log, but now we're streaming the log directly into BigQuery and then analyze it, and it's all done by agent, right? If it's me, I probably have to like learn all the components in BigQuery to learn it, but now the agent just tells me.
It just does it. On that optimization front, have you found that you need to treat the agents, because again, you could finish vibe coding an app or even doing real engineering. Have you built habits for yourself of even being at the end of it going, hey, tell me what's wrong with this, or find security problems? Like that's a step we have to, I think, we have to do ourselves sometimes, because the software of us might say you reached your goal, the system works. So do you find yourself getting into a habit of pausing and saying, try to find problems with this thing? Should we, our own audience, be more adversarial with these agents to try to break the things that the agent's building? How do you think about that, Christina?
So I do have to write some scales because I understand my application a little bit better. So there is a way that combining with the user knowledge and also my own knowledge, and this is what you saw during our demo, is that I particularly like to give more context to the agents, right? So that's how I deal with the skills. And that's how we generate the report of giving it more kind of knowledge of how this thing operates and what kind of information I want to know comes back to your question about optimizing your application. Right?
Yeah, how do you think about kind of forcing a revisiting of the architecture and the application, the decisions?
Yeah, I always, nowadays, at the end, it's like you think that you're ready and you're good, and it's always like, hey, can you go in and just see if there's any optimizations or refactoring that needs to be done? And sometimes I take what they want, that they suggest. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just take a small piece of it. Yeah. But it's always good to know because, like, especially when you write some complex thing and your app is pretty large, you're not going to remember every little bit and piece that you're going to do. So it's nice to do that, plus checking to make sure that there's no security risk and everything, because you're not going to remember everything. And so it's nice for somebody to just go scan through and just making sure. And you don't always have to take the input, especially when we do have that whole human in the loop, being able to see what are the changes and just accepting certain pieces of it.
Now you were building kind of at the final demo this autonomous like system where, hey, you're able to read information, agents can talk to each other through A to A, they can kind of remediate, and they put you in the loop at the end going, hey, do you want to approve this change or this change? But we were talking about this before we jumped on here, but as we move to a more, I don't know, agent-centric, even autonomous cloud, what's that mean to the developer, the engineer? Where does their work move to? Because it's not the same. There might not be slinging every line of code. They might not even need to know all the details of every cloud service that they're using. What's that look like? Like, what's that? How should a developer start getting ready for that universe?
I think you have to elevate yourself, not just being. I think before a lot of the knowledge has been segmented in different areas. So we, as a human, because we need time to learn a lot of the knowledge. So that's why they're segmented. But now we have AI doing a lot of the detailed work for us, and it has a lot more knowledge than we do. Sure. We have to elevate ourselves, becoming a more full stack and architect level person to tell AI what to do and my intent.
You're almost doing product engineering, but how do you think about what is that role of the developer?
Yeah, I think everybody's afraid like AI is going to take over my job, but ultimately we need to build the knowledge to be able for the AI to learn this stuff. And ultimately, I think that it has actually made it where us as developers can do more, because before, developers used to be like, all right, I built the code, here you go, infra, you go and help me deploy, you help me go and monitor all of that stuff. But it also makes it where you don't understand the product from a performance issue. Now you have to worry about all of that because now it's part of your problem. And so when you used to toss it over to the other side, you don't worry about those things. And I think that it actually is making people become a better developer because they have to be a full stack developer.
It's a little scarier now, but let's say thank everybody for calling in here. This was some things we can do. Add MCPs to your dev environments. You can access production data. Add some of these toolkits in pieces so that you can actually do some advanced things and keep stretching your career by trying some of these new domains. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Google Cloud Live. I am Greg Baugues, and we are filming here from Google I/O. So excited to be co-hosting here with Tilde Thurium.
Hi, I'm Tilde. I help developers build with Google Cloud. So great to be here.
And Tilde and I are joined by a celebrity. You may actually already know him. This is Harry Kwan here from the YouTube channel Code with Harry.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh man, we are so excited to have you here. So your YouTube channel, you make content for developers.
Yeah.
And you have 9.6 million subscribers. You're approaching rapidly on 10 million subscribers. And I just want to talk about this. I have so many questions.
Yeah, you feel free to ask me questions.
Amazing.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. Tell us about the birth of your channel and how this all got started.
Okay, so it all started during college. I used to help a lot of friends. One night before the exam, they used to come to my room. They used to ask me questions, and I was really good at explaining. There were a lot of friends, used to explain different topics, be it arrays, be it data structures, be it web development or computer number architecture, all those things. I thought that if I can explain these things to them so well, I can explain it to the entire world. And I just started my YouTube channel. I was told by a lot of people that, in Hindi, it's not going to work because it's a local language. You should do it in English. I did it in English as well, but I did it in Hindi as well. And you know what? I proved them wrong. It's a big channel now, and I'm so happy that, my channel grew to 9.66 million subscribers, and I'm able to teach whatever I know to everyone. So yeah, it started from there, and I still make a lot of good content. I try to make good content. I try to catch the AI wave now, and being here at Google I/O is such an amazing feeling. It's great.
Yeah. Is there any videos or content you made that you're especially proud of?
Yeah, I did cover the entire data structures and algorithms in a playlist. People can watch it for free on YouTube, and it has millions of views. I created a Java series where I break down Java from the very beginning. So anyone who doesn't know what Java is, they can come. And now with the help of AI and AI translated subtitles and tracks, you can even come and learn Java. You can come and learn web development, and that's the beauty of AI, and that's the beauty of the AI era. Coming back to the content that I build and I'm proud of, I've also done a lot of beginner-friendly content along with some very unique projects. I did a project called Project Jarvis, and it was way back when there was no AI. I mean, I should not say no AI, no LLMs. LLMs were not that popular, and people built that project with me. Like, it was a very basic AI. You can chat to that AI, you can speak to that AI, you can turn on the program and you can say, hey Jarvis, open Google Chrome, and it will pretty much, do whatever you say. That it is programmed for, obviously. So it worked like an agent. Like, it was the first agent that I built way back in 2020, and I'm really proud of that, and people loved it. People are now coming up with updated version of that particular Project Jarvis using LLM. I'm really proud of that. A lot of other content I'm really proud of, but these were like at the top of my head.
If I built an agent before it was cool, I'd probably be proud of that as well.
Yeah.
I think you're truly one of the most followed developer YouTubers in the world. Why do you think your channel and your content has been so successful?
What I feel is I was able to connect with the people. Like, when I create content, I put myself in their shoes. I will not start with what I know. I will start with what you know. Like, if you know nothing, I'll assume I know nothing. I'll focus on all those tiny steps that needs to be taken to, complete installation, to complete whatever it takes to build that software, or whatever it takes to build a particular program. I go from the basics to the very advanced. And when they see the depth, and when they see we are coming from the basics, and when they see the depth, they really like it. I use a line in my videos. I say, we'll start from the basics and we'll raise the bar like anything.
Wow.
And they really like it. And in the end, the last video, they say that, yes, you did raise the bar like anything. And that really makes me proud. Like, we started with the basics, and then we finish off with some good projects with some good depth, and I really like that. And I feel that this is one of the reasons my content was successful. Another thing is the love that audience has given me. I bring a lot of humor in my content, a very good humor, and they like it. And yeah, I really love my audience. Like, they have supported me so much. and I will continue to build some good content for them.
Seems like a lot of that audience is here at the show. You're getting you're people coming up to you. You're like a celebrity walking around here.
It was so lovely catching up with a lot of people, and it really makes me proud. People recognizing me, taking pictures, and telling me that they got a job after watching my Java series I've developed. That's what makes me, go like I should make more good content.
Yeah. One thing I really like about your channel is you hit the technical topics, kind of make it very accessible. You also have some career-focused content there as well. This feels like for some, both an exciting and a scary time for software developers with all that's happening with AI. What advice do you give to software developers today who are trying to navigate this transition?
I would say look at AI and agents as a tool. Do not look at AI and agents as somebody or something that will replace you. I don't think that creativity is going anywhere. I don't think that human mind is going anywhere. I don't think human will be replaced as us through any technology in the coming future. I mean, I might be proved wrong, but again, I don't see that happening. So use it as a tool and keep learning, and you are going to grow in career. There are examples of people who have built some good career through AI, and they say that had it not been for AI, we wouldn't be this far. So yeah, I mean, if you use it like a tool, if you use it like what it is, you are going to definitely do well. So keep upskilling. Don't give excuses. People give excuses. They say that AI is here, I should not learn coding. AI is here, we should not do this. But in my opinion, you should just put your head down and start working. Get yourself to work, and you'll definitely succeed.
I couldn't agree more. People have been saying that developers are going to be replaced since COBOL was coming out, and it still hasn't happened. But speaking of AI, let's talk about the Google keynote. Was there anything in particular that inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to try out anti-gravity, and specifically Gemini 3.5 Flash in anti-gravity. I was talking to Logan, and I was telling him that this model is so fast. I wanted to discuss the technical details. We didn't have the time, but again, I am still amazed to see how Google made this model so fast. And he was like, it has to be faster because it's powering the search. And it really blows my mind how far we have come and how good this model is. I'm really excited to try it out in the new anti-gravity app. This is something I'm really excited about. Another thing that I'm excited about is the glass, and I really want to see how I can start using and how soon I can start using the Google Glass. So yeah, these are the two things I was excited about in the keynote. There are a lot of other things. I can keep going for like 30 minutes, but yeah, these were at the top of my head.
Yeah, is there anything in particular that you've been building recently?
I have been trying to build a terminal, an AI terminal. Like I'm trying to build that. I'm trying to build my own version of terminal where I can basically plug in any model, and it will be it will definitely work like, it will kind of work like Claude Code, I would say, or Gemini CLI, or Codex. It will work like that. And I'm trying to build that. I'm trying to build that project like very, very slowly, but yeah, I'm trying to build that. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about folks who maybe want to get into coding for the first time. What about developers who might want to dip their toe into YouTube? Do you have any advice for developers who are considering going down the path that you've gone on?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that you can try out. But if you try out YouTube, if you start sharing your knowledge, just start it. Like anything you want to do, I would say just start it, try it out. Unless you try it out, you are not going to know how it looks like. And it sometimes feels easier, it sometimes feels difficult. Yeah. It might feel easier for you and difficult for me. It might feel easier for someone else, difficult for someone. If it is something that you love to do, if it is something that you really want to do, if it works out for you, see, it might work out, it might not work out. And you will know only after trying. Yeah. So I would say try it out. You should definitely try it out. Content creation is not going anywhere. Yeah. That's my understanding of it. Okay, you have a lot of AI tools. Use those AI tools and create some awesome content. We saw a lot of AI tools in the I/O. The ones we already had Flow. The ones those were recently announced are really awesome. Yeah. So those can be tried out, and you can create some awesome content. So my advice for all these people is that go ahead and try it out for yourself and know the answer to the question by trying.
Well, and I love your story too, that you made content for your language and for your community. and by going your own path, you've achieved great success, right? And I think that it might be easy for folks to look at you and say, well, he's at 10 million subscribers, why would I even bother, right? But I think everybody has their own audience they can speak to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speak their own experiences. How do you do video editing? Do you have an editor now that you work with? And how do you manage that whole? It's so, video editing is one of like the grindiest things I've ever done in my life. It's so much work.
Yeah. Okay, love that question. So I started editing my videos on my own when I started, because to be honest, like the content that I used to create, it was really very simple, like screen recording. And to be honest, I used to record in one go. Like I even have videos 15 hours long on YouTube.
Wow, you published a 15-hour-long video?
Long video, I do have it.
How did that perform?
It performed really well, like
really
views, yeah. So coming back to your question, I have a video editor now, by the way. I started editing my videos on my own, then I wrote a script. Like I automated all the boring tasks. For example, I used to film using a camera and use a mic on my phone, and I then have to, sync the audio with the video.
Oh my gosh.
I automated that.
Okay.
I created a program in Python. Being a developer, I created a program in Python, and you just double click, and the audio and video.
And it syncs it.
It syncs it, yeah. And talking about, I'll tell you how you can do it now. You can go to Google AI Studio, build an app that can do that, in a single prompt. So it's so easy now. Like if you look at it from 2020's perspective, okay, from a person who is in 2020, from his perspective, it will sound very difficult. People will say, he's a developer, he did it, I cannot do it. But now even you can do it. Yeah. Learn a bit of coding, you can do it. So I created this program, hired an editor here and there. There was an editor, I trained him from scratch, and he used to work with us for some time, and then he left, he got some good opportunities, and we hired another editor. Now I outsource video editing. I always welcome good editors. So if you are an editor, you want to edit Code with Harry videos, yeah, shoot me an email. Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
What surprised you most about building your channel?
What surprised me most, I never thought I will hit 1 million subscribers. Like I am closer to 10 million. So this is something, the support I got from the audience surprised me the most. I always used to think, when I started, I used to think I'll get like 10, 20,000 followers and I'll do it part-time. Yeah. And it will just work for me. Like whenever I feel like I will create a video. Yeah. And the best part about YouTube is that videos you are putting will be there for the rest of the lifetime. So I thought I'll just build a portfolio of some good videos, but that portfolio, it turned out to be a 10 million channel. So incredible. Yeah, that surprises me the most.
I was really surprised that you hear folks say, hey, you got to publish every week. And then I was asking you earlier, how often do you publish?
I don't have any set schedule. Yeah. If I can build good content, if I can build 4 pieces of good content in a week, I will go ahead and publish it. Yeah. If I cannot, like I have not published a video since 2 months, it's because I don't want to publish video for the sake of publishing video. I respect the audience. Yes. I just don't want to throw anything at their face. Yeah.
And I think I heard you say, when I feel like it, and I think that's so powerful, because it's like when you feel like you have something to tell people that's useful, you do that.
Yeah. I filmed some content here at I.O. because I felt like I was really excited about all the announcements that were made, and I shot some videos. Like audience will see those videos very soon. Yeah. So
yeah. That's it. How do you think about when you create content about a piece of technology? That technology might be outdated 6 months later. Like, how do you think about that? Like your content the longevity of your content.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Very good question. So if I am creating some videos on C language, I think it's not changing. Okay, it might change, but the basics are not changing. If I'm teaching basics of JavaScript, it's not changing. In the past, when I used to make videos, I used to assume that the audience will watch it today. But now when I create a piece of content, I will assume what will happen 6 years down the line.
Wow.
And I will give them a heads up. This version might be updated. So if you run into any issues, you should go and check out for updated version. I always say I'm installing Python 3.15, but it might be updated. So you have to install 3.22. A beginner might think that why am I installing 3.15 and why is it showing 3.22 for them? So I give a heads up. So longevity depends on the type of content, and I'm always ready to update the content. I'm always ready for the challenge. If my content gets outdated, I always pin a comment below and I say like, I have created an updated version of this video. Or if I feel that this particular video is not relevant as of today, I just give them a heads up and I say that, this is not valid today, and you should definitely go and check out for some other video if I have not created one, and if I have already created, I just send them to the link of that video.
Incredible. I feel like I could sit here and I have so many more questions. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So if folks want to find you, Code with Harry.
Yeah.
Right. And we got to. I don't think you need our help, but I'm excited to see you hit 10 million. So if you're watching this and you're not already subscribed, go subscribe. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks a lot for having me here. Thanks a lot for having me at Google I/O. It's so much fun. I'm really very happy and thrilled.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back live in 5 minutes from Google I/O. Hey everyone, welcome back to Google Cloud Live. I am Greg Baugues, and we are filming here at Google I/O. I am joined here with Seba. Could you introduce yourself?
Hey, Greg, thank you for having me here. I'm Seba Gnagnarella. I lead engineering for Firebase, part of Google Cloud.
Yeah, fellow New Yorker.
Fellow New Yorker, yeah.
Amazing. Enjoying the beautiful weather here.
The weather is great. I heard back home it's raining. Very bad.
I heard it was raining. I heard it was 100 degrees yesterday too.
Yes.
So Firebase, there are, maybe we could just start with Firebase 101. I think one exciting thing about some of the new product launches we've done is through AI Studio and whatnot, we have a lot of folks who don't identify as a developer building with Google tools for the first time. So what is Firebase? Why would someone want to use Firebase?
Yeah, so that's a great question, a question I get often. So I want developers to think of Firebase as Google Cloud's platform for client development. Right? If you're building a mobile app, if you're building a web client app, or if you're using like a web framework that's predominantly client-side, such as React, Angular, Next.js, so on. If you're building agents that are running on the client and whatnot, we want you to think of Firebase. Right? We give you all the tools you need. We give you the services you need, sitting on top of Google Cloud to build those powerful clients. And that's part of our integration with AI Studio too, right? Like on the AI Studio side, we integrate with client-side web applications that also have a server component deployed in Cloud Run. And we just make it easy. Just make it easy. And something we realized, something we learned is that, over the years, Firebase has been around for a decade, right? And we always put a lot of emphasis on developer ergonomics, on documentation, on our CLI, just to make it easier for humans to build.
Yes.
But guess what? Like, agents benefit from the same ergonomics. So we realized that exposing agents to Firebase, they already knew about the documentation. They already know how to use the CLI. There is a decade of documentation on how to use Firebase. So they're just building with them. Yeah. And it's super simple for agents to build with Firebase as well.
I think you have a lot of folks building with coding agents these days. You build your thing locally on your machine, and then at some point you need to deploy that somewhere. And I found that using the Firebase CLI, it is such an efficient and quick path for your coding agent to deploy and make whatever it is you're building live.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Our CLI is very well documented. From day one, we build it for power users, and now the agents are the power users. And we always had every feature everything you could do through the Firebase console was available in the CLI, right? So on top of that, we recently launched the agent skills. Okay. So on top of all the corpus the agents trained on, as far as how to use the Firebase CLI, now they also have skills, just improving the craft and on how to use Firebase. And everything you build, again, everything you build in Firebase, you deploy to Google Cloud, either Cloud Run, Firestore, Cloud SQL. So everything you deploy is supported by Google Cloud.
And you mentioned some AI Studio. Talk a little bit more about, because a lot of folks might be familiar with AI Studio. You could vibe code basically the front end apps, right? But historically you did not have persistence. And then a few months ago they launched a pretty large Firebase integration, right? Could you talk about like what that gave to the AI Studio platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few things that before launching the Firebase integration, like the Firebase Studio partnered with Cloud Run, which is another GCP service, on providing that backend and hosting platform. So you could not only build your application, but if you wanted to start sharing your applications with potential customers, with your friends and family and whatnot, you could deploy to Cloud Run, and that would give you an URL, and now you have a hosted web app. But we were lacking, in that integration, we were lacking persistence, and we were lacking authentication to begin with. Right? So when you're building an application that you want to start sharing with users, first you want to store their data, and you want to store their data securely, right? You want them to give them something they can log into, and if you're building like a note-taking app, or I don't know, an app that stores user content, you want to make sure that that content is only available for them.
Oh man!
So we added those two components through Firebase.
I mean, like going back, 20, 30 years, I feel like you start building an app, and the first thing you do is in MySQL create a users table, and then create the login page, and then create the auth, and then wonder if your auth was secure enough. And I was playing around with Firebase and the AI Studio and the auth, and I felt like I clicked 2 buttons, and all of a sudden my app, now the users could OAuth in using their Gmail account, and it just felt like magic that it just worked.
Yeah, yeah. And on top of that, like you probably saw another announcement we did is the integration with Workspace. So through Firebase authentication, you can integrate your app, or the app can integrate with your end user's Workspace account. So think that you can build an app that says, I don't know, take all my bookings from my calendar and help me visualize them in a map. And then you can give that to all your friends, family, end users. They logged in. It automatically, as I like to say, pulls their information from their calendar, and now they can see all their appointments in a map.
I am so excited about this feature.
It's very good.
We have been doing internal hackathons with teams at Google and at YouTube who they're on the marketing team, so they don't identify as developers, and so they wanted to build apps to help them with their work. It's like, that makes sense. So we're using AI Studio, and they're like, great, how do I connect to my Workspace account to get the spreadsheet that I use all the time in? And it's like, oh, okay, well, you got to go to the Google Cloud Console and set up OAuth credentials and then download the credentials to and they're just like, I'm not going to do that, right?
Look, I've been doing software development for 25 years, and I still find that hard to do.
Oh my gosh, it is
now
hard.
It's a couple of clicks.
That's amazing. And that unlocks so much productivity for folks.
It does, yes.
And I think that's so exciting to me, because I feel like folks start getting so much agentic coding is when they're able to pair it with the context that they're using daily, and for so many knowledge workers, that context lives in their Workspace account.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So you gave a talk, what's new in Firebase. What were you talking about in that session?
So we covered a lot of things. We covered a lot of things. So we covered a few launches. Some of them we did at Google Cloud Next, like not long ago. It was
4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago. It feels like it was like a year ago. So we did some of them there, and we just re-announced some improvements. For example, we have a product which is called Firebase. It used to be called Firebase Data Connect, which was Firebase SQL option. Firebase has historically have a NoSQL option. And a year ago we launched GA. We launched general availability for this product called Firebase Data Connect, which is our SQL option. And we realized, well, we asked developers, and do you know that Firebase has a SQL solution? And they didn't know about it. So say, hey, let's shift the product. Let's relaunch it as Firebase SQL Connect.
Oh, cool.
And let's double down on the features we're building on top of Firebase SQL Connect. So now we offer real-time, which I call like the Firebase magic. When you build an application on Firebase, part of the magic is that we make it super easy for you to have real-time sync with what's happening in the server.
Amazing.
So you are using a Firebase app on your phone, and you're using a Firebase app on your tablet, and a Firebase app on your browser, and all data stays in sync, like in a very simple way for the developer. So we added that to Firebase SQL Connect. I'm super pumped about it. We added offline support. We added SQL support. Like you can literally write your queries in SQL instead of using GraphQL. So I'm very excited about that one. And the other launch I'm very excited about is we have a product called Firebase AI Logic. Which makes it super simple and secure, which is the most important part of it, for developers to integrate Gemini into their mobile and web apps.
Oh, wow.
In there, we launch security improvements and, of course, support for Flash 3.5. And the other thing I'm super pumped about is our integration with coding agents. Right? We talked about AI Studio. Also, Firebase, it's part of the anti-gravity onboarding.
Amazing.
So you start using anti-gravity, and you just check a box, and now anti-gravity speaks Firebase.
Right.
We are default in Android Studio.
Amazing.
So you're an Android developer, you're building an app, you want to add a backend. Android Studio speaks Firebase. The coding agent knows how to spin up an environment. You never have to leave Android Studio. And then we publish our skills. Right? We have skills for iOS, we have skills for Android, we have skills for web, we have skills for Flutter. We added products like Crashlytics, which is then one of the the prominent crash reporting tools out there. We added a skill for app config as well, which is our experimentation platform. So yeah, we've been cooking. We've been cooking.
Amazing. So if folks are building with coding agents, you're basically, a lot of the improvements, it sounds like, is equipping those agents, regardless of what agent they're using, with the ability to very easily and efficiently use Firebase to really enrich and give their apps some pretty powerful features.
Exactly. So we used to say we want to meet developers where they are, right?
Absolutely.
Now it's we want to meet developers where they're going.
Yeah.
All right. Because if you're meeting where they are, you're just months late.
Right.
So whenever, wherever, however they build, we want Firebase to be there for them.
Yeah, and because Firebase was already so easy to use, it's easy for the agents to use.
It's easy for the agents to use. And, again, we have a decade of what we call corpus, like documentation, like forums, like our own documentation. The agents the developers are using are trained on all that documentation. On top of that, you put the skills just to point the agent in the right direction. You have a super powerful platform for agents to use.
What's some of the coolest stuff you've seen customers building with the new improvements?
No, that's a great question. One, we have a customer in Finland, right? That so I didn't know about this, but if you want to become a Finnish citizen, you have to take exam, like a language exam. Like you need to show that you're proficient in Finnish. And this guy built an application. It started as a hobby, right? And built an application to help people pass that exam. And he uses every the latest and greatest bleeding edge of Gemini he's using. And he integrated everything using Firebase and Flutter.
Wow.
He has thousands of end users using the app. Ranking very high in the App Store in Finland.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a very cool one.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting with the sort of generative AI coding advancements we made the last couple of years. It used to be, because software was so expensive and it took so much effort to get it up and off the ground, that to justify things, you sort of needed to be deploying to a really wide audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like so many of these changes have empowered folks to build software that's useful for them or their community, like much smaller software, because it's so much easier to build stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like Firebase is a really important part in
it's
that.
to your point, it's now it's less about the technology itself. It's more about solving the problem.
Yes.
Yes. I need some nice technologists to make sure that we are right there for you to use.
Yeah.
But we want developers to focus on solving the problem. Right.
It's not out of the realm of possibility that there are folks building stuff with coding agents who are using Firebase who don't actually realize they're using Firebase, right?
That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Right. In one hand, I want, as a proud,
you want the name out there.
I want the name out there, right? But part of me and a conversation I'm having with my team is, if a developer has to leave their, if they have to get out of the zone to go to the Firebase console, we fail.
Right. Which is fascinating. I mean, I've heard that before. There's an argument that if the developer touches the console or touches the docs, that's a failure state.
Exactly.
Right, and that might be hyperbole, but it's not too far from the truth, right?
No.
And at least my experience with Firebase, I feel like y'all have done a great job of moving into the next realm. For folks who want to get started, what is the best way to get started with Firebase? How do you recommend starting to play with some of these features?
Yeah, it's go to Anti-Gravity or go to AI Studio. If you go to AI Studio, as soon as you ask AI Studio to add a database or auth, you're gonna get going with Firebase. Or go to Anti-Gravity, just that box, and Anti-Gravity is automatically installed, and you start playing with it.
And you're off and running.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
This is great.
All right,
everyone. Thank you so much. We will be back in 5 minutes.
Right. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Dave Elliott. I am a Developer Relations Manager for Cloud AI here at Google. We're at I/O 2026. Long day of live streaming. Today we're very fortunate to be able to talk about some of the latest models that have been released, Gemini 3.5 and Omni. And with me today we have, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. Hi, everybody. I am Katie Nguyen. I am a Developer Relations Engineer here at Google Cloud AI, specifically for generative media. So anything that outputs, images, video, music, text generation, and speech. The fun stuff, the media.
Hey everyone, I'm Lavi. I'm part of the same team. I'm a developer advocate for anything agents basically. So today I'm going to show you some of the cool things other than the fun things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, great. So let's dive right into it. I think we have about 20 minutes on this. So next slide, go ahead.
Yes.
You're driving.
I am.
All right, so what did we announce here at I/O today? We announced a whole bunch of things. These are the 5 things that I think matter the most. It's anti-gravity 2.0, Spark, and manage agents. We are not going to talk about those in our session.
Yes.
We get to talk about Gemini 3.5 and Omni.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And the cool things.
Yeah.
And we're going to see demos, hopefully. Cross your fingers that work.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead and move on. Let's lay some context. Let's create some context here. So this is my favorite chart. It's kind of an eye chart, but it's what I call the chocolate bar diagram. It is everything that you need to know about building on the Google Agent Platform, Google Cloud Agent Platform. So Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform, we call it. Build, scale, govern, and optimize. Those are the big 3 pillars. Now, most people, I think, focus in on the build piece. Right? That's the part that really gets a lot of attention. But I think the scale, govern, and optimize is going to be, as we go into the future, even more important. Right. So let's talk about the things that we highlighted in red for the audience. So, Katie, can you talk about the Gemini models, the Google models?
Absolutely. So since I do the fun stuff, I live a lot in the build section of this diagram, but again, all the other stuff is super important, especially as time goes on. But accessing these models on Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform is, super easy since I do the fun stuff, the media. I like to really do this within the UI specifically. So you can generate all the content, work within the UI, the Agent Platform Studio, and then also developers can access all of these models programmatically via the API. So you can do this through building agents with ADK, which Lavi will talk about, or through some awesome things like the Google Gemini SDK.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's one little box, one little sliver on the chart. Yeah. So Lavi, walk through the not all of them, but just the ones in red that you're going to show in your demo.
So one of the very great things about this diagram is it tells you the real world that you go from 0 to 1 with the build. And then when you want to go from 1 to n, this is where the scale, govern, and optimize comes into picture. And I'm going to show literally exactly the same journey today. But the most important part is we're going to start with Agent Development Kit, which is the agent framework that we have. And you can build some of the coolest, complex agents out of it. But the other thing which I want to focus on is the agent runtime, which is very important because once you have the agent, you want this to be deployed somewhere so that your colleagues can use, your friends can use, and you also want that to be in a secure environment so that nobody hacks it. And this is where the scale part and the govern part comes in. The other thing, which is the agent security and the agent registry, because you may imagine yourself to be at a place where you have like hundreds of agents, thousands. At some point, and this is where the registry sort of comes in very handy because you can sort of just get to that registry, figure out which ones are the most important agents that you have. And the last one, which is my favorite, and I'm going to show you a demo on this, which is the evaluation, because again, you can build agents, you can play with them, but unless they're evaluated and the organization sort of agrees and aligns with that, there's no point of doing that. And that's pretty much what...
Yeah, and things change. Like
and
six months from now, the evaluation you did on day 1 may not be relevant because you have a new vendor that uses a different language.
Right.
You really have to control the context and control the help with it.
And this is just a couple of things. As you can see in the diagram, there are so many other things that we don't even have time to talk or show. But yeah, that's the beauty of this diagram because with Agent Platform, you basically get access to all of this and a couple of things that I'll show in my demo that how easy it is for you to get started with that journey. So it's not that it looks complex and oh my God, you have to learn so many things. It's really easy and I'll show that.
All right, great. So let's move on to the meaty part of this. So let's talk Gemini 3.5. So this is the big announcement that we had today. The Gemini 3.5, we say, achieves, I'll read it here, achieves higher intelligence while bringing down the cost of the frontier. So really I think the three things that we proudly sort of stake 3.5 on is improved coding, agentic workflows, or it's better and you'll talk a little bit about that, what we mean by that. And then multimodal. And multimodal has always been a differentiator for the Gemini models, right? Trained from the very beginning to be multimodal. So this is what we announced yesterday. And this chart on the upper right-hand side here, this shows you basically, my interpretation of this is you get near state-of-the-art performance, near state-of-the-art results. I say performance, I should be specific. Results at much lower prices, lower cost. Now, while technically the prices of Flash have increased relative to the outcome, the results, it's really giving you close to that state-of-the-art at a much, much reduced price. Those are the two big things.
And you know, one of the things that Sundar mentioned yesterday in the keynote, where if you actually do the calculations, you end up saving billions of dollars just at that scale. So while the cost may seem slightly higher compared to the previous one, but the amount of intelligence that you get at that price, I think that's really impressive. And the other thing which I know that you're gonna talk next is the token per second. So
well, no, actually the next one is exactly what you're saying. Go ahead and go to the next slide, which is the benchmarks. And these benchmarks are the total eye chart. It seems like it's obligatory that we talk about these every time we launch a new model. All of the vendors talk about it. But a few things that actually do stand out that we're going to show here in the demos are the coding, right, and the agentic. And you talk a little bit about those, how much better they perform.
Yeah, and again, just to put into the context, we are comparing with the 3.1 Pro model that we had and the 3 Flash that we used to have. From there, we have done a fabulous job with terminal bench, which essentially means in a very simple way that now the models are trained so good that it can do a lot of terminal batch level things in a very good way, and you can see we have done a great improvement there. The SWE bench is again a industry standard, and you can see that we have done a good job. Again, just to add a context, that this is a Flash model. This is not the Pro model. We still have to announce that, and at some point you will see that as well. But a Flash model with so much fast, you get the industry standard SWE bench Pro results. And then the MCP Atlas, which is again the way it sort of calls MCPs and how efficient it is. And you can see the numbers, how we have gone from 78 to 83.6, which is really good. And the last one, the tool one, which is again great, 56%. All of this means, and again, there are other numbers as well, but the most important thing to remember and take away is that this makes your agentic experience with any coding harness, whether it's anti-gravity CLI or any other that you use, you're gonna really feel those differences in those areas.
Right. And the last piece, since the name of the model is Flash, is the next slide, shows really the performance. And this is layered on top of, when I said performance, layered on top of the outcome, right? The better results, the more usable results, is how quickly they get returned. I think that really is one of the things that stand out from this model.
Goes with the name. Like this is I think if you see the bottom chart, and this is my favorite chart because you can clearly see that not only do we match up the performance to the 3.1 Pro that we used to have, which a lot of our customers and developers use, we are so fast now. And again, I'm going to show that how fast this is the moment you sort of just put a query, and it's really fast. And that's the kind of thing that we are aiming with the Flash models, which is you get the best performance in the cost, which sort of is slightly cheaper compared to the others, and you get very fast token per second.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's jump. We've teased at your demo a lot, so let's switch over now to Omni. So Omni was announced yesterday, and Katie, would you like to give us the snapshot on what Omni is and why it matters?
Yes. So Gemini Omni. It's really awesome. My realm of generative media, very fun. So right now it's a new model in a Gemini family of models called Gemini Omni, which the idea is you can see on the screen, you can create anything from any input, but starting with video, so you can take any kind of modalities and translate those into videos.
Awesome. So you have some demo-ish things to show us?
I do. I've been playing around with this model a lot. Users can go out and try it right now on consumer platforms, so Flow, the Gemini app, or YouTube Shorts, and it's coming soon. We announced in the keynote yesterday to APIs and developers and on agent platform. But I've been playing around with a little bit, so I kind of wanted to show you some of my creations.
All right, let's see it.
So one of my favorite things about this new Gemini Omni model is it has all of the world knowledge. Think about all the benefits that you got from Nano Banana when that, became the architecture that it is now, and you have all the world knowledge benefit of being a Gemini model. So I took this suitcase, for example, and I gave it this prompt, and I said, float up and spin in circles, which is, unrealistic. Suitcases can't do that. But then it opens up in a realistic way, and it has the physics and the knowledge behind that and can render different text within that. So in this case, I called the suitcase the Omni case.
No, clever.
Clever, right?
Yeah.
I know. I didn't even use Gemini to come up with that one. And add some fun colors and stickers. So you can see that video here.
It's really good. It remembers the exact context of what you've actually given, which is very interesting.
Yeah. So the beauty of Omni is, it has all of the same modalities that you're used to with a VO model for video generation. So this case is an example of, starting from an image and using that as the first frame for your video. So if I play it really quickly again, you can see it starts in that same first frame.
Yeah.
Spins it around, opens it up, and gives some fun text. And
that took you all of what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, from idea to conception, definitely. The speed on this model is really awesome too. We're talking about.
But the fascinating thing is you actually wrote Omni case with fun burst of colors and stickers that pop, and it actually did that, and it was a very fun, very interesting that it was able to remember and connect that.
And it's this isn't the best grammar by any means in these prompts. You can tell Gemini didn't write these; it came from me. But it's not super grammatically correct. But this model has a really deep understanding of text prompting and trying to get out what I want in it. Every time I ran this prompt, it renders the Omni case exactly correctly in that same type of logo that I was after.
Just a funny story for the audience. So we're here at I/O, and we talk about world understanding, and there's a photo booth, an Anna photo booth, and I went in there with this shirt on, and one of the options was show me presenting at I/O. I thought this would be fun, and so it'll put me on a stage presenting. And what I loved about it was it showed me presenting a session on ADK with this T-shirt with that logo up there.
Yeah.
So it knew that what this logo was, and that's something that is reasonable for me to be showing. So that world understanding now comes to video.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great example too. It just had the logo. The model didn't even see ADK on it on the shirt, so it's able to have that context.
I can only almost imagine the amount of branding and marketing that people can do with this. You can now, because I don't think so it was possible before in the models where you can sort of maintain the context, maintain the structure of what you're feeling.
That's a good segue to one of your demos.
To one of my next demos. We're going to take a slight detour along the way because these are the order the slides are in. Haha. But the other great thing about Omni is, the world, we talked about all the context. So if you say things like, create a claymation video about Newton's first law of motion, I don't need to explain to the model what that is or provide any kind of dialogue. And this is the output from this prompt.
Rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will keep moving forever. Unless stopped by a wall.
That's so cute.
Yeah,
I wish we had that when we were studying.
Right? I
Could
know.
have made so many videos.
I know. School might have made a lot more sense at the time. But and the great thing about Omni, too, is it has outputs of 10 seconds. So you're able to have a little bit longer videos when playing with video generation as well. And then, going back to the whole theme of Omni, you can take any modality in. So you can take this video that you just generated and regenerate it in different styles. So maybe I want the same concept.
Rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will keep moving forever, unless stopped by a wall.
Yeah, so it takes the same thing, but in a different doodle style.
Very nice.
Yeah, and getting back to Lavi's point, we talked a lot about what this could mean for marketing and personalization in different scenarios. So I said, what about me? What if I put myself in a video? So
what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? I know. So I took me with my dog, Remy, that is more well-known at Google than I am at this point, and he's nodding his head, and a Nano Banana storyboard of kind of, I asked Nano Banana to imagine Remy and I having a day at the beach. It's so hot here, I kind of wish I was by an ocean, so this was as close as I could get, but this is the result.
This is really cool. Your face doesn't change. so consistent with your face.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
No, the consistency and kind of what you were saying earlier is like a huge unlock with this model. Is you're able to provide kind of anything as reference. I have, different character images, but I also have an image that's just a whole storyboard, even with text in the image from Nano Banana.
We talked about this at lunch, where like the video generation quality is so high now.
Yeah.
But the real pain that people have, I think, is in the prompting and the editing.
Yeah.
And this feels like it's like the nano bananification of video.
Yeah.
Of the video.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the storyboard idea is very fancy as well, because you can actually convert your ideas into like a step-by-step of what the video should have.
Yeah.
This also takes you to a direction where you can actually have much more larger sort of short films, or like bigger than that, because you can actually build all of this and keep feeding and keep changing things.
Yeah, you can have a lot more control over planning out the scenes and switching between them in the way that you want them to be presented, just through images, through if you have like a video, you can supply that as an input. You can do audio as reference, and so there's a lot of really creative ways that people
Would
have.
Dennis say anything to anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting. Now we only have about 9 minutes left, so I want to make sure we have time to close this out.
Lavi's
and
amazing.
Sold a lot of my
demo.
He talked a lot about it, so we should see it.
Never want to follow generative video though, because that's pretty cool to look at.
Okay, and I'll leave you with one more, Lavi, just to make everyone jealous here. So I'm obsessed with my dog. We all know that. So here's a video of him on a G-bike going into a Google office. And kind of to Dave's point, the real unlock of this model is you're able to do iterative video editing through natural language. So I said, that's the prompt I gave, everyone can read it, and this was the result.
Oh, it has the Nobler hat.
Yeah, I had a hat, and so it's, really consistent in the video as input, just with different characters, so.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Omni,
really
can't wait to play with it.
I know. Can't wait to see what everyone creates.
All right, but now let's go back in the remaining time that we have, and let's talk about Gemini 3.5. So again, the differentiators were around agentic, were around coding, and then as always, multimodal. So I think you're going to show some of the agentic and coding things, right?
Right. And just to set the context, so the choice of agent development that we have across the Google ecosystem as well as agent platform are these. The one that I'm going to be specific to is the first three, which is the agent development kit, agent CLI, and anti-gravity. So let's go to my screen and let's build something. Okay, so what I have here is a very blank setup of a project. As you can see on the left, I have a bunch of the prompts that I want to try. I don't want to type just in case. And then I have a Gemini.md, which has like some very basic basic rules and stuff. And I did this just so that, because I'm doing this live, and as you can imagine that things can go wrong. So I just wanted to add certain rules. Now, here's the thing, and this is where we started when we were initially discussing, Dave, which is the build part of the whole platform is very important, because this takes you from, having a very rough idea of what you want to do. Maybe there's an agent that we want to build with Omni and all of that. Yeah. So that's the first thing I want to show, which is I have two things set up in the system. One, which is the agent CLI. Agent CLI is a CLI that we offer, which has access to a bunch of different things that you can do with agent platform from an agent perspective. And then it has skills for ADK. What it does is it basically knows how to build the best ADK agent. And then when you give your ideas, and this is what, if you see the prompt that I'm doing here, which is build me a daily news bot using ADK. And this is a project which Dave's keeps asking me, which is, hey, can you tell me what is the news that we have today? So I thought, why not let's try to build it. So what I'm doing here is that I just asked this, that hey, this is what I want. I want RSS feeds of latest AI news, summarize the 5 stories. And the last part of this is very interesting. I say I should be able to deploy this and fetch the latest stories with what I want. So I'm trying to define what I want. This is basically from 0 to 1. Let me hit enter, and you can see that I'm using Gemini 3.5 Flash, the medium version, because you're not trying to do anything complex. Now, while this happens, the one thing that I want you to notice here is how fast this is. And the first thing it did is it figured out that I need to figure out the agent CLI, and I need to know how to use it. And that's the part which we were discussing even in the benchmark, which is how good it is to do the tool calling, how good it is to sort of do the agentic, sub-agentic things. And you can see that we are just sitting idle. We are not even doing anything, and it just figured out what I need to do, how I need to use agent CLI. It called a bunch of different sort of MCPs, tools, and all of that, and this was really fast. The best part of Anti-Gravity ID that I like is that it comes up with the implementation plan. So what you see right now is that it figured out everything, and it gave me things like, oh, so I'm going to do this, and this is the deployment permission that I need to do. And this is the whole setup of what the final agent sort of looks like. Now, the best part I can do in this is I can actually add comments. You know, this is very similar to how we do things in Google, which is when I'm trying to build something, I write a doc and I say, hey, Dave, do you think this is good? And Dave can comment that, oh, no, maybe do it other way or something. And that's the beauty of it. It's a usual comment. So you can actually add this, and then what it does is it sort of keeps that in mind while doing this. So I'm not going to change much of this. I'm just going to hit enter or proceed. And you can again see that it basically created the task. So if I click on this, you can see that there's a task list that it has created. And on the left, what you will start noticing is that it basically created the whole scaffolding for the agent. And this is interesting because you just started with an idea, and then it figured out that, oh, I need the app folder, I need the test folder, I need a bunch of these different files. And that's what I meant, that now going from 0 to 1 makes it really, really fast because of access to agent CLI and access to ADK skills and all of that. And again, I'm not touching anything. You can see how fast things are on the right. And this really puts the whole 3.5 into the context, because you can see A, how fast this is. B, sort of it knows which tools to call, what time, when to call, and how fast I need to sort of reference this. And that's pretty much what's happening. So you can see right now it's sort of trying to UV sync, so it's doing the installation. Now, again, just for the context, Dave, this is again something that we have seen so many developers struggle, where we go out and we teach about ADK. And the very first 20 minutes just goes in installation, you know, talking about ADK and all of that. Imagine that we just say this will just unlock so much of what they can do with this.
Yeah, this becomes a very practical way for developers to get started and just to see to get to some value.
Yeah. And again, while this is sort of, I want to quickly show you that if you see on the left, you do have a bunch of folders. One particular, if you see the app folder, which is where the agent.py, again, this is the ADK way of writing agents, which assuming that, let's say I don't know, it just created the whole agent. What you see right now is that it was able to figure out that, hey, I did some mistakes in the agent, this is how fast it is, and it's now changing all of those things. So you can see how it's now doing the rough check, it's now doing the evals, and that's one of the points that we were talking about, which is evals are so important because your evals can change. Agent CLI with ADK skills sort of knows this, and whenever it builds something, it has an eval as a test. So it knows how to keep testing and keep sort of improving it unless it sort of passes all the evals.
Okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. Are we going to be able to get to
the final part? Okay. While this sort of goes on, and I think it's almost at the end of it. Oh yeah, I got the post.md. So finally, in the good time, you can see that I got the post.md. This is basically, if you see all the best sort of AI news across the internet. I didn't define what sources, it figured it out from that. And that's it, yeah. So you were able to build all of this. Now the other two prawns, which I didn't include and we didn't have time, is you can actually now just say that, hey, just deploy this. And it's going to just do all the deployment for you. Of course, once the auth is done on behalf of you. So yeah, that's the beauty of 3.5 with ADK and the agent platform.
So you raced through that demo. That was awesome. Would love to have seen the other two parts of it. But I think to summarize, you showed us what 3.5, some of the potential of 3.5. What I always tell people with any new model is just go try it. Just go play with it, experiment with it. This is as true today as it was, 3 or 4 years ago when we were getting new models. We don't necessarily always know the potential, the possibilities. We are going to learn as we do, and then iterate. Some things are going to be better than others, and so my advice is please go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so let's wrap it up here. Lavi, what's the best way for people to get started with Agent Platform and Gemini 3.5?
So the best is you can just go to our docs. We have a bunch of amazing docs around all of this. Agency LI has a doc, ADK has a doc, Agent Platform has a doc. So just go there. And the most fun part is you can just point all of these docs to Agent Anti-Gravity and just let it do the things for you, like I did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And of course, you missed the opportunity to show off the shirt.
Sorry.
ADK.dev.
ADK.dev.
No, I didn't get the memo about the shirt. But,
And the best way to get started with VO today is you mentioned it before.
yes, you can use VO and any of our other generative media models within Agent Platform.
And Omni's in
And
Flow
Omni is
and-
in Flow, YouTube Shorts, and the Gemini app, and will be coming soon to Agent Platform.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back live in 15 minutes.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Google Cloud Live. I am Greg Baugues, and we are filming live from Google I/O. I'm joined here by Tilde.
Hello, I'm Tilde Thurium. I help developers build with Google Cloud. So happy to be here.
Amazing. And we are joined by Caleb.
Hey guys, I'm Caleb. I'm a content creator on YouTube trying to cover the entire AI stack.
I am so excited to talk to you.
I'm happy to be here.
So you've got a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Caleb Writes Code. We're chatting. You started this in April, and you went full-time in July.
Yeah.
3 months later.
Yeah.
And I am so excited to talk about that journey there. So let's start here. Why did you decide to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I started back when I was a developer. I have a developer background for about 10 years. And then I realized that when Sonnet 3.5 came out, I felt that in my job that something was going to change. So I realized that I really need to understand what the transformation is coming. And I was very intimidated at first because it's AI just feels like such a big topic. And so what I started doing was I started to delve into, try to understand what coding agents really are. So in order to actually centralize my knowledge, I started to create a video so that I can put my work together and then share with other people who might also go through the same thing. Because at the same time, I'm sure all the other developers were kind of going through the same thing of man, this is a lot of change coming in. So I shared that video, and it turns out so many other people were curious about the same topic that I was curious about. So ever since then, I've been really trying to chase my curiosity and trying to fill in the videos by helping other people get informed, get educated on what I think is relevant in the industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. Have you made a particular video that you're the most proud of?
Honestly, I think the one that I'm the most proud of is the one that I've done recently, which is on the inference engines. And that is somewhat less popular, I would say, because I think a lot of people live on the agentic side. But when you go a little bit lower down the hierarchy, you start to get into inference, which means you are actually running the deployed model. And I think the reason why a lot of people are curious about it is because based on how the inference works, it determines how fast the tokens are generated, and it determines how well the reasoning are going to be. So I think that video, I tried to really dumb it down into the first principle of what is an inference, what are all the phases, and why is it such an important topic, and why is it such a difficult topic? So I try to make the topic less intimidating so that I can help people understand what inference really is. So I was super excited about that one.
Yeah, I really appreciate you breaking that down, even for our audience now defining what inference is, because as developers it just feels impossible to keep up, and there's so much terminology, and I can see you care quite deeply about making things as accessible as possible.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that too, I think there's been a growing interest in people wanting to run their own models at home. And so there's been people buying up Apple hardware, people buying up graphics cards, so because people want to run their own models at home. And in order to do that, you really have to understand how inference works, because you're bottlenecked by the hardware to actually run these models at home. So to understand inference well helps you understand, what model can I run at home, and what kind of performance could I get to pair my coding agents with a locally run large language model. So I was surprised by how much interest on a topic that I thought was pretty nerdy, but that there's so many other people that are also down to get nerdy with me. So yeah.
I feel like the best YouTubers follow their interests and create videos that are interesting to them, as opposed to trying to copy what they see other folks. Would you feel like that's what you've done here?
Yeah, and that's a very intimidating thing. It was and it still is to some extent now, because you kind of have to trust your own instinct that what you are curious about is going to be what other people are curious about too. So you really have to trust yourself that what you want to really dig into to understand it is what other people also find it interesting. So I definitely agree with that.
My daughter, who I think is watching, hi Emma, if you're there, she's in 6th grade. I got to go to her career day a few months ago. If you ask kids these days, what do you want to be when you grow up? YouTuber seems to be the most popular. You are living the dream right now. You have the hottest job in America. What has that transition been like for you, going from software developer to full-time YouTuber?
It's funny because I worked 40 hours a week as a developer, and now I'm like working a lot more than I did. But I love what I do. So it's almost like I'm working a lot more, but I really started to enjoy more of what work actually means. So I think one thing that I found so liberating is the fact that I can follow the industry and pick something that I think is something I'm super passionate about and try to really share that journey with other people. So it almost feels like I'm building my career instead of like trying to join a company, which is fine too, but I think... Thank you for saying that. Yeah, which is like, it gives me a lot more ownership to what I want to build. And so, but with that, it comes with a lot of responsibility and trying to make sure that, you know, you're getting paid well and you have sponsorships, you have ad revenues coming in. And I'm really thankful for YouTube because it gives me the platform to bring people together, and it also has the ecosystem that allows sponsorship and allows AdSense to actually make this whole thing work for my own living.
What has surprised you the most about becoming a content creator?
Yeah, I think what I found surprising was the fact that it wasn't just about chasing the numbers and the analytics. I was talking with a lot of other content creators here at Google I/O, and I found that people find so many different ways to actually get to success. So it doesn't have to be a huge following. It can be a very niche thing, but that is such a valuable thing that you put out there that it's important enough that people get invited to come to Google I/O and people get, like, people contribute value to people that want to learn about something very specific. So I learned that initially what I thought was like, oh, you got to chase the numbers, you got to chase the views, you got to chase subscribers. But it was more about just being more authentic to what you think a niche is and really trying to like hammer in and doubling down on like, okay, I think I know who my audience is and I think I'm with them. And so how can I actually try and be ahead of them so that I can help that community grow? So.
You said something at dinner last night. You wanted to get paid to learn. You feel like, could you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I am inner nerd, outer nerd as well, but I really enjoy learning. So I think that's why YouTube is like such a good like Goldilocks zone for me, because it's like, if I could just sit down and research about a topic for 8 hours without having to worry about getting paid, paying my bills or whatever, that is like where I want to be. So the fact that I get to not worry about the day-to-day things, but really dig deeper into topics that I'm curious about, that's what I'm super passionate about. So I feel very lucky that I get to do that, and I have the opportunity to do that.
What does a typical day in your life look like?
Yeah, so it's all over the place. It's, I would say, pretty unorganized. Some days I stay up until 5 a.m. editing videos and publishing it, and when that day happens, I take the next day off. So it's a lot of like, it depends on the flow of the market. So I really have to be like engaged in what's happening in the industry, and if it's a busy time, that requires me to really double down on my hours to get the video out in time. But there are also slow days too, so it's not like a steady 9 to 5 all the time, but it's kind of all over the place. But yeah.
You mentioned video editing. How did you start learning video editing?
I had a few channels before. They didn't do well in the past, but I think...
Really? So this is not your first YouTube channel?
No, yeah. I took them down because I felt half embarrassed by the work that I've done in the past. But what I will say about that, though, is that there's really no... It wasn't a waste of time, because I think you look at your past and say, well, the channels didn't do well, so you just got to close it down and be embarrassed by it. But the skill set that I learned in those channels 100% carried over to my current channel. So I had less time leading up to editing videos because I had all that experience built into learning about editing videos. So I edited videos since I was a kid, but I didn't do it professionally. But I didn't realize just how much things compound into the things that you learned in the past and how much it actually helps you in the future. So it definitely wasn't a waste of time. Yeah.
What advice might you give to any developers in our audience who want to dip their toes into content creation?
Yeah, I think, honestly, going back to what I said about just being confident in yourself and what you find passionate about, and I think once you start doing that, and really trying to double down on that specific niche and sharing that process with other people. It gives people the opportunity to see what you're working on and see who you are. And a lot of it, I think, is personality, which is like, who is this person? What is he interested in? What is he building? And so I think going back to what I said about the number thing, like, it can be so tempting to be like, well, I got to get to 10,000 subscribers, so how do I get there? And I think that's a wrong way to think about it, which is how do I focus on the things that I'm passionate about and share my journey, and hopefully I can get to a specific number to have that as a goal and get there. So.
I think one challenging thing about being a YouTuber is you have to do everything, right? And some folks will outsource editing. You still do your own editing, yes?
Yes. Yeah, I do all my editing myself.
But you did say last night that you got a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk a little bit about the role of the manager and how that's helped you in your profession?
Yeah, so I signed with a manager about a year into my career as a content creator, and that was a big learning moment of, oh, I don't have to be chasing all the deals and sending correspondence and negotiating rates and everything. That took up a lot of administration tasks that took away from actually researching and putting out good content. And so shout out to my manager, Yama, and Amy. They've been such a good addition to my team, because it's not like they're doing their thing and I'm doing my thing. We get to work together to push out my channel together. So we're almost like collaborating together to try and grow the channel in a very organic way. And it allows me to not really worry on the administrative side of creating a channel, but actually just focus on what makes my channel unique and what other people think that my channel is valuable.
What technology have you been deep diving into lately?
Yeah, so there's one thing I'm super passionate about. I really like looking at the whole picture when it comes to AI. There's the application layer, there's a model layer, infrastructure layer, chip layer, and energy layer. That's the 5-layer cake that I think Jensen Huang has used pretty often, and I really like that analogy. And I think recently I've been really digging into the last layer, which is the energy layer. So that's the area that's like least talked about, but I'm so passionate about, because I think you start to realize that on the agentic side, what happens on the agentic side is actually influenced by all the layers underneath, because the architecture, the application is determined by what the model can provide, but the model architecture is restricted by what the infrastructure on the data center level can give. And the infrastructure is also limited by the chip and what chip are you actually putting into those data centers. And then finally we get into the energy layer. Can we actually power those data centers? Can we actually find ways to build those data centers? So I've been really passionate about the whole energy layer lately, and it's been such a fun journey. Yeah.
That is so interesting, because I know nothing about that. What do you, fast forward 5 years, like how do you think the energy layer is going to look different?
I think I don't have a crystal ball to look into it, but I think a lot of people are curious about it because they are worried that energy is going to be something that is going to cause AI to stagnate. But I think people have found ways to work around it, and I'm really thankful that like frontier labs like Meta, like OpenAI, like Anthropic, SpaceX, Google, they're finding ways to work around the geopolitics to actually get their data centers built up. And so I hope that in 5-year time, it'll get easier here in the US to actually build data centers in a clean way, in a way that's scalable. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the 5-year plan would look like. Yeah.
Things are changing so fast, it's really hard to make predictions, so I appreciate you giving it a shot.
Of course.
And I think it's so, as we wrap up here, like the content you're making is so valuable for developers, because you can just go to the chatbot and type in your thing and get a query bit or response, but the more you understand what's happening underneath, I think the better you can use these tools. And to your point, I think that goes all the way down the stack. And the more you understand the constraints of the stack, the more informed tool user you can be, and the better power, or the better results you can get out of these tools. So I love your channel, and I love the content you're doing. I think it's like really inspiring watching you pursue your own personal interests and say, I'm going to do this because I'm into it, and then the algorithm helps identify other people who are into that as well, right? And help you find the audience. So it's really, really cool. It's an awesome talk.
I feel very lucky to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm from Detroit, and this weather's been beautiful.
Amazing.
So thank you so much for having me.
We got some solar energy in here today.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, where can people find you on YouTube?
Yeah, my channel is called Caleb Writes Code. It's on YouTube.
Amazing.
And, you can follow me there.
All right, follow him there, and like and subscribe all of his videos. Learn more. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Greg.
Appreciate it.
All right.